A record-setting amount of snow fell on the state of hockey as the Minnesota Wild were set to host the Winnipeg Jets for Game 3 of a first-round matchup of the Stanley Cup Playoffs at the Xcel Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. The heavy snowfall forced the closure of the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport and caused a one-day delay in the Jets' arrival, ironically by plane, to Minnesota. The Jets held a commanding 2-0 lead in the best-of-7 series, and this would be the last NHL game I'd cover for the season, unless the Wild could pull out a series win or the NHL or Bruce Bennett wanted me to shoot the Stanley Cup Finals. Get at me, boys. I've covered NHL games in 6 different barns throughout the course of my career, and the process is pretty much the same everywhere you go when it comes to shooting locations. You check in with the team photographer, let them know who you are and who you're covering the game for, and about 45 minutes prior to puck drop, an assignment sheet is posted by said team photographer of where you'll be covering the game from. This being a playoff game, it garnered much more attention than you would find in the regular season, and rightfully so. A huge indication of this would be that I had to shoot from a raised location. This was the 29th Wild game I worked this year, and it was the first time I had to shoot from an elevated position. It was only for a period, though. I think it's important to share that I would lay on my belly at ice level and shoot from a hole in the dasher boards if they let me. I like to be as close and as low to the action as possible. Frames from up high just don't do it for me, as it's the same angle you get from the TV cameras. Every spot has its pros and cons, but up here, the cons win by a mile. Some of those cons include obstruction on the near side from the protective netting and plexiglass, and fans jumping up to celebrate during key moments of the game. Please note, no fans were yelled at during the recording of this video. These guys are told before the game by the ushers not to stand up like that. And unless it's a breakaway or a shot from the point, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get blocked by referees or other players. Case in point, these goals by Zach Parise and Mikael Granlund. Time for an informative tangent. In my line of work, there are great moments and there are great photos. As a photographer, you need to have both of them in order to be successful, because a junk frame of a great moment is still a junk frame. Now, back to our program. You ever have one of those days at work when everything is clicking and you can do no wrong? Yeah, me too. But unfortunately, this wasn't one of them. But it wasn't for lack of trying. In capturing hockey, you want to get the goal and the celly, which oftentimes can be a way better frame than the actual goal itself. I'll break this down for you in a little segment I like to call Pick a Stall, Buddy. The first example comes from a March 19th till with the Los Angeles Kings. Minnesota Wild center Eric Staal enters the zone with the puck on his stick, his head is up, and he begins to flamingo. The leg up informs me that the shot is coming. Informative tangent time. As a photographer in camera, you can't always see the entire play. In situations like this, you rely on the crowd noise to tell you the part of the story that you aren't seeing. Yes, you see the player's reaction, but the crowd definitely helps. This was one of those times. Now back to our story. When we last saw our hero, he was entering the zone with the puck on his stick. His head was up, and he had just begun to flamingo. I knew the shot was coming. I see the flex and the Bauer twig he's using as the puck leaves the frame, as I'm still hammering away on the shutter. Then, in my mind, a silence falls over the X, but just for a nanosecond, and then all hell breaks loose. I follow Eric into the corner as his face is full of emotion. Also, did you see how fast that all went down? If you are seeing it happen in frame and you're not on the shutter, you're missing the moment. Now, back to the playoff tilt with the Jets. As Yogi Berra once said, it's like deja vu all over again, but this time with a few subtle differences and a completely different outcome. The puck enters the Winnipeg zone and the Jets defenseman attempts to send the puck up and out off the far half wall, but Wild forward Mikael Granlund breaks up the clearing attempt and makes a nifty spin move, losing the Jets defender in the process, while putting the perfect pass right on Staal's tape just above the faceoff dot. Thinking that Staal was going to dish to Minnesota Wild forward Jason Zucker, who was all alone in front of the net, I quickly thought about zooming over to him, but my past experiences with Mr. Staal told me otherwise. And here we go again. The head is up. Next came the flamingo, then the flex. I've seen this all before, so I'm on the shutter. Next came the perceived hush as 19,000 all inhaled at once as Staal unleashed a rocket over the shoulder of Jets goalie Connor Hellebuck and just under the bar for a Minnesota Wild tally. And just like before, Staal, on a motion level 100, skates into the corner for the celly. The whole time I'm on the shutter as his teammates make their way to the rendezvous point. It was like my own private photo shoot. So I thought. What came next is a reason why getting it all to come together is so rewarding. Because this wasn't one of those times. Let's break it down. As Staal takes the pass from Granny, I'm on him. Nice tight focus, decent composition. Then, as he's about to shoot the puck, the stick of one of the Jets' defenders comes up and my autofocus grabs it just for a split second. I get it back, but the damage is done. Soft focus equals an unusable frame. No biggie. I got the celly, right? Wrong. I had a nice tight focus on Staal, but remember our friend Jason Zucker? Well, I got blocked by him. Not once, not twice. Dude, 3 times? Despite Jason Zucker's deep-seated hatred for me, I did manage to squeeze off one usable frame. Also, I think we can all agree that Staal number 1 is where it's at. And I know that sounds dirty, but it's not. For the third period, I set up over in the corner just to the right of the Zamboni doors. This is my favorite spot to shoot from in all of hockey. Tons of legroom and a full view of the ice. I wish I could call this home for all 3 periods of every game I've ever covered. I mentioned in a previous video that my favorite photos to get in baseball were of fielders fielding ground balls. When I'm covering hockey, my favorite frames to get are from this spot of a player with a full head of steam, head up, puck on the stick, and coming right at me. Yes, goals and cellies are nice, but for my money it's the prior. It's also a good spot to get tight profile frames and of course face-offs. Covering a team as much as I covered the Wild this season, you begin to pick up on ticks, nuances, superstitions, and rituals that makes each player unique. One of my favorite rituals is that of Wild netminder Devan Dubnyk before the start of every period. It goes a little something like this. 2 dabs to the crossbar, grabs a water bottle, gives an offering to the hockey gods, douses his face, 2 quick dabs on the top of the net before putting the water bottle back, 1 more quick dab of the post, and he's ready to go. This one would end in a 6-2 Wild victory, and from this spot it's the perfect vantage point to get post-game celebrations. Like this, and this, and you're the worst.